Good morning, everyone, and good morning. Coming up, we have Joseph Lee from Impact Counseling Consulting Services with the Impact Hour coming this way only on WSAN Radio. All right, Joseph, I was explaining to everybody the new iPhone update that have a name drop in there, and by default, it is turned on. So I shared it in my link that people could cut it off on their kid's phone or cut it off themselves. But you have to say yes if you want to share your information with anybody. But I don't know why they did that by default. When you get an update, you should have an option to cut it on and off. And so now you have to turn around and go to your kid's phone and cut that option off. So I don't know.
What's interesting is that, I noticed that when I did the update, see, I have, I don't know if you can see it on the camera here. You can't, that's crazy. You can't see them. But anyway, I have two phones, just like, I guess there's a song out there about having two phones. I don't have it for the same reason in that song. I think it's one for the something and one for the load or whatever they're talking about. I think they talk about drugs. I'm talking about something else, right? But I noticed that when I put my two phones together in my jacket, in my suit jacket or whatever, they start doing some interesting stuff. So I noticed about that update because the phones are trying to communicate, and there's a little message that comes up says, "Do you want to share or do you want to receive the information?" But on the good side is, you ever been out, somewhere and you're at a business meeting, whatever, and you want to share the contact information. It makes it easy to do that, right? But like you said, it also could make it easy for somebody to possibly get your information. But I think you can put on there receive only, right? So it won't transmit your information. So receive only comes up and then it says cancel. But if you don't want those headaches, I think I'm going to cancel it or disable it anyway, because my two phones are together. It keeps making some interesting things, and the screen has like a ripple effect on it, like water is going over it. And I was just like, what is going on with my phone today?
I did the same
But both phones, both phones are doing it. So I was like, this is getting on my nerves. You know what I'm saying? So there are definitely some updates, definitely some things going on with technology. And, but I always say this, if people want your information, other folks want your information, they're going to get it anyway, in terms of, you talk about Big Brother, so to speak, they already got your information. They don't have to get it. They already got it,
Right.
And I can give you some incidents of that, where people, hear conversations that, that you didn't know were being listened to. The Patriot Act back years ago, made sure that we had some access. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily a bad thing, especially with everything that's going on right now in the world. There might need to be some advantages, but at the same time, I think you bring up some very valid points about kids. And I want to talk about some things today about self-esteem, about kids, and how they can be led to do some things that can really mess themselves up in terms of sharing information, pictures, and all that type of stuff. So now that, from what I see, that you can share just your contact information. I didn't see that you could share pictures and things of that nature. You can do that by airdrop though.
True.
So a lot of times, people, because of low self-esteem, wanting to impress a significant other as teens and even as adults, send pictures they know they shouldn't be sending. One of the things I have to tell, kids in school, in my private practice and whatnot, is that, hey, you got to make sure that you are not airdropping pictures you shouldn't be airdropping in a classroom, because that can actually get you some charges. And the charge that I know of that you get when you are putting some pictures of body parts on the screen and airdrop them is child pornography.
Yes.
So you do not want to get caught up in that. There's investigations that have to happen. It's a mess. So, it's really something that we need to talk about now that we're in this information age and technology. is communicating sometimes, unknowingly. But when you airdrop something, you may be trying to airdrop it to one person, but if you say accidentally hit airdrop all, you got a serious problem. So, I see Vishero just came on. Good morning, Vishero, Grand Rising. So I think it's something that we need to talk about, and I think we need to. This opens up a bigger question, or a bigger statement rather, of what we need to be doing with our kids, especially in like an early elementary, all the way up through secondary education, is instilling self-esteem and self-worth. All right, that is something, and I've been looking at the things that have been going on in the news and talking to some different folks about that. I had a meeting earlier, and we were talking about how do we end up where Diddy is paying $30 million for what he allegedly did with what is her name, Cassie. How did she end up? How did he end up paying $30 million, right? And
Yeah.
obviously, we've got this problem in this country where folks feel like they have to do certain things to get certain things, right?
Yeah.
And we've had this problem, and obviously, in the case of fame and fortune, sometimes people allow themselves to be placed in uncompromising positions to, get fame, fortune. We've seen that with Diddy. We've seen that with R. Kelly. We've seen that with, other celebrities. The list goes on and on and on. But I think where it starts is, way back in childhood, where you're instilling self-esteem, self-worth, self-value, where young ladies as well as young men won't be so misguided to pursue things or allow themselves to be treated a certain way because of monetary or fame or acceptance or whatever the case may be. So we have to instill that at an early age, especially with our young ladies, so that regardless of what advantage, your self-worth has to be more valuable than any type of monetary gain. And parents, need to understand, if you don't instill that, what you're really signing your child up for down the road. If you don't have that self-value or that self-worth, you wonder how some ladies get in these abusive relationships and they stay in them. That's because they don't have any self-worth. They don't have that, they've been beat down their whole life. So they expect, well, maybe this is how relationships are supposed to be. Then you listen to some of these R&B singers that are singing songs about dysfunctional relationships, and you're thinking, well, maybe that's what I'm supposed to have, a dysfunctional relationship. They're singing, and I'm not just beating up on Keisha Cole, but Keisha Cole has, a lot of them, a lot of songs like that. Well, if Keisha Cole is singing about how hard it is for her to have a relationship, healthy, maybe that's what it's supposed to be like. Maybe I'm supposed to, be going through this type of drama and mess. So it's very important to, in elementary school, when you're forming your values, your structures of how you're going to guide your life and what you're going to accept and not accept, to instill that self-worth, to instill that value into our youth, so that they will have that value as well as that moral compass. That's another piece. And that's why, Craig will be getting back on here. We're dealing with that church hurt. It's so important to have that moral fiber instilled from multiple places, family, church, environments, to make sure that they aren't pursuing things against a moral code or a moral template that you should have. And I think that's how a lot of these folks end up in this situation. You got celebrities, they got money. They know the people will do whatever they can to get their so-called big break, get their exposure. And I think, people allow themselves to be put in positions, or even, unfortunately, in the case of, R. Kelly and possibly some other entertainers, allow their children to be exploited because there's a possibility that they might be famous. So, I don't know. I don't know how we can blame the celebrity, but we don't blame the people that allow, the enablers that allow their children to be exploited as well. So I
Yeah.
think we got to really look at that. How we instill self worth, how we allow folks to kind of get out there like that. And that's how we end up writing those checks. But then you got to also think about this too. I kind of feel some kind of way about getting $330 million, and then there's no further, when you kind of think, I think it sends a double message, right? Whatever horrific thing she endured, she still got $30 million for it. So, not saying that $30 million validates what happened to her, but there are some people that may allow themselves to be put in situations because there maybe will be a payday at the end of it. But what about those people that don't get that payday?
Yeah.
What about those people that, may come up missing? There are some of those incidents. I'm not going to call anything out right now, but there's some incidents where people, don't make it to the press, don't make it to being publicized. And some people would then go down different mental illness traits of depression, and then we're looking at suicidal ideation, and this isn't just for celebrities. This is for people that are in just regular day life that are allowing themselves into dysfunctional relationships because they have low self-esteem, or staying with somebody because they have low self-esteem, or they're trying to work it out. But again, you got to instill that self-worth. And, one of the things that Cat Williams said is it's called self-worth. You got to, at some point, be able to instill it, back in yourself. But, I think when you're younger, when you're kids, I tell my daughter all the time, she's beautiful, she's smart, and we're teaching her to be self-reliant. And that there's more things important than the paycheck. You have to also look at the purpose of what you're doing and all that type of stuff. And when you have all those things instilled into a person's mindset, they won't allow certain things to happen. I'm buying you cars and I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I might have my faults, but I'm paying things. Yeah, okay, well, put your child in a position where they can pay for their own things. Then they don't have anything to manipulate, right? But we have some interesting values that we have to really look at, and what we're instilling in our kids, what we allow them to watch, what we allow them to put in their value set, and what we will allow them to put in their mind is it's okay to tolerate. My daughter knows, don't nobody put their hands on me. Yeah, I don't care who it is. Don't nobody talk to you any type of way. I don't care who it is. And some people say, hey, Joe, you're pretty protective of your daughter. That's my job. That's my job.
Yeah.
When you have authority over someone, authority is supposed to be there for protection. That's what you have authority for, is for protection, not to manipulate or tell somebody what to do. You have that authority granted by the protection that you can give. And unfortunately, some of our parents are not protecting their children, their most important, asset, more, not even the asset, their most important part of their lives. I guess it's an asset too, but I don't like thinking of it as material. That's your whole purpose, is what you do for your children, and that's your legacy. So if you're not protecting that, you're really not doing much. So.
Yeah. Hey, I want to go back when you said these celebrities, they get that big payday and all that, but they still have that problem. Money cannot solve that. They sort of hide from that. And we don't see them when they're alone falling apart, because I'm going to say, because I said it years ago, anybody out there that's famous or doing things, actor, a singer, sometimes they do that to get away from what's haunting them. That's their way of getting away from that reality, and they're in their own little world. But then when that's over with, you see a lot of it all the time. These child actors and actresses, when that fame is over with, they become alcoholics, turn into drugs. The payday is there, But when that payday stops, reality sets in.
Well, even before the payday stops, the problem set in, because really, before you become a celebrity, before you become famous, if you've gone through trauma, if you've gone through things before you get into fame, you've done nothing but fuel the fire, so to speak, once you get money. It's an old adage that, these people that get money and then go crazy, it's only because they couldn't go crazy because they didn't have the money to do some of the things that they were doing. But once you fund their foolishness or fund their crazy, then you can see really what what they evolve into. And then people get how can I put it? Their tolerance of what is fun has to constantly expand, right? So they start doing more and more outrageous things. They have more and more access. They have more and more people telling them, no, that's okay, we're going to cover for you. I mean, if you just look at the story with R. Kelly, it's a perfect example of that. R. Kelly was not able to do what he was able to do for so long without other people helping him. People turning a blind eye to what they knew was wrong. And I don't want to just beat up, on R. Kelly and all that. I'm just talking about, that's just one example. We talked about what happened with our sister, Veronica. There were people that protected that pastor, that knew what he was doing with those kids, knew what they were doing with, males and females. But they didn't do anything about it. Why? Because he had this position in the community. Well, that's part of the issue, right? What are we willing to allow our kids to suffer because we don't want to expose someone that we care about? We care about their talent or what they can do for the community. Well, if they're doing something to the kids, it don't matter about that other stuff. We got to deal with it. But we have, and it's not just us. It's a world problem. We got the Weinsteins, we got the other folks that, they hide it a little better. They just put it on their island somewhere, or go somewhere where, they can do whatever they want to do. And it's supposed to be hush hush, and, we got to expose that type of stuff, because what happens is one of the worst things you can do to a child is them to be traumatized and to deny them that it happened.
Amen to that. We hear a lot of that.
That is one of the worst things that I've seen. That's one of the worst things that I've seen people try to heal from and deal with, is when you have that trauma and then the parent, the one that they're supposed to go to and tell, don't believe it, or they don't listen.
And the other one they throw on there, they make a child feel like it was their fault. They justify them doing it.
That's kind of how that internalization happens. Well, I must have caused this because nobody's listening to me. Nobody's, acknowledging what happened. So, and then sometimes you've got parents who will actually blame the child for what happened. You shouldn't have been dressing like that. You don't go in there, when this person is this, that, or the other, instead of holding the person accountable, So, and this isn't new, this is, but what to stay on the topic of self-esteem, what does it do to a person's self-esteem when a child is violated or a young person is violated, and when they finally get the nerve to say something, they're not believed? What do you think that's going to do to their self-esteem? Well, I'm going to tell you, it's going to destroy it.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why kids are dressing a certain way, carrying themselves a certain way, getting involved with this, that, or the other thing. It's because they don't have any love for themselves. And the places where they went to go get that love was the same place sometimes that caused them the most pain. And then they have the child come talk to somebody like me, and then I have to facilitate the healing process because I'm a mandated reporter. And if I find out that something like that's going on, then I have to report it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something, I've never made that report and they not appreciate that report's made. You've got people that are pedophiles that have been abused before, that are abusing now because they're victims, and they repeat that victimization.
Yeah.
And they want help. But, and I remember, I'll never forget the first time that I dealt with a situation like that. And I was like, in school, I was thinking, like, how am I going to deal with this? If this ever happened, how am I going to deal with this. And when I saw the person for the first time really struggling with what they had done, it was because it was done to them. And then my whole brain shifted like, oh man, they're a victim. And now they're causing other people to be victims. And they were being tormented. They were in, even having suicidal ideation. And, when you realize and you see that, it's really a demonic sickness that perpetuates itself. And when you add fame and drugs and money to that, obviously,
Yeah.
can be hidden a lot easier. But even without that, it goes on in communities, and we have to deal with that. And one of the best ways to do that is instill that self-esteem at an early age, and also teach kids, what areas should get, that are their personal areas that should not be touched.
Yeah. No, you
So
brought up,
that's how you do it.
yeah, you brought up love. And
Mhm.
that is the key. Kids are seeking out that love from the family members and everything. That's the reason why when I was growing up, gangs were so popular that they loved you. But what they did, it was a false love. I'm saying it was a false love because they love you and they get you in. Now they say, now that I did this, I want you to go out and do this for me. And
Ron, call it what it was, man. It was manipulation.
yeah,
Call it what it is. It's manipulation. It's not a real love. When you buy a kid Jordans and it appears to be no strings attached, and those Jordans cost $300, and that child is in an impoverished environment, and then eventually you say, well, yeah, if you want to keep these Jordans, man, let me show you how I get this money. And, maybe you can help me out and do this, do that, or the other thing, right? And that's one way it goes. It goes the other way too, where some people, groom people for other things by giving them gifts and money and candy and whatever. And, so you really have to watch your associations. You have to watch these predators out there, because they are manipulating our kids. Some of the shows, the videos that they watch are manipulating our kids.
yeah,
How often have you seen a young rapper or whatever with wads of money in the video, talking about or on social media, you know, um, and then ironically, unfortunately, shortly after, that same person that's showing that money is no longer here with us, because you're advertising to
yeah.
some hungry folks that you got what I want and I'm going to get it by any means necessary. So we gotta really look at our values, man, and look at, not all money is good money.
Oh,
And
yeah.
one of the things I'll never forget, man. I, I had a client one time. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've seen hundreds of people, and I'll never forget this client. I told him I was going to use this because he could barely speak English, and he had a son who, I'll just be real. He was trying to get into the gang life, because he was attracted to it. He was seeing the fast money. He was seeing the girls that were attracted to that energy, and he really wasn't trying to hear certain things. And this man sat there and he listened to his son spew all this garbage about, man, why should I go to college? I can go get this money right now, And he tried to ask me, I'm right out of college, and he's like, yeah, Mr. Lee, how much money do you make every week? Man, he pulled out this wad. I said, you got a good point. You might even make more money than me right now just getting out of college, but how long are you gonna be able to live to spend it? He's like, well, you don't need to worry about that. But his dad said something really profound. He could barely speak English, but he said, you're gonna keep your money the way you make your money.
Hmm.
It's like, let me break this down for him, because when he said it, I was like, wow, if you make your money fast, you're gonna lose it fast.
Yes.
And so what he did in that one sentence is tell him, man, you don't have nothing right there. Yeah, you might have went out there and hit up a couple blocks and made some money or whatever. But when you get done with court fees, when you get done with, what you got to do to protect yourself, the the anguish that you have to always watching your back and all that. You really don't have, when if you get injured out there in the streets, the front you got to put on behind the so you can look the part. You really don't have much, and it's just out there, man. That we've got to really show our kids what making real money looks like. Over the long term, people that are making, working a regular job, but not having to worry about all the court fees and all the craziness, they're going to make more money in the end because they're going to live longer.
Yeah.
They're going to have better quality of life. And that's one of the things I'm learning about Japan is, the median income here is very low. I think it's like $2,000 a month. But you walk around Japan, you drive around Japan, very seldom do you see anybody that's not happy. And I'm talking about the locals. Now here, those of us that are over here in Japan, that's working with, with the government or different roles or whatever, we're making way more money. A lot of times we're not looking happy. You know what I'm saying? we're not happy. And they look at us like we're crazy too, because don't be in a hurry in Okinawa, Japan. Don't do it. You're just going to drive yourself crazy because they're going to drive about 50 kilometers per hour, which is about 40 miles per hour. And you're not getting anywhere quick. So it's something to that. And I check my heart rate and stuff while I'm here. Now that I've kind of got into what they call it, the Oki way, the Okinawa way, my heart rate has dropped significantly. And I'll be truthful, I have not started working out the way I want to. So it's got to be this beautiful environment.
Yeah.
The food. I'm drinking things like, apple tea, you know what I'm saying? And just, get away from the caffeine as much. And reevaluating what's most important in life, and then pursuing that, which is family, friends, kind of what I was doing, in San Antonio, but now on a higher level. Why? Because this is the culture here, other than Kim Jong-il shooting up missiles, we good.
Yeah.
While I'm watching Oppenheimer, by the way, that was interesting, but it's always something, right? It's always something. But what I will say is we got to really evaluate what we're doing with our kids, with our mental health, with these relationships, because I see women and men in relationships they shouldn't be in because they just don't have the self-worth that they should have. And that's why we have to start young, instilling that self-worth so you don't end up in situations of domestic violence. And I got to give this phone number out for folks that are in situations that are domestic violence. There is the domestic violence hotline, and that's 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-SAFE. Also, you can text START to 88788. And that's, you can go to also domestic violence support, search that online and get help there as well. The hotline.org has that information. So, if you're in a situation where you can't figure it out, you're being abused, there's help 24/7 right there. So, and this is not just a woman's thing. There's guys that get abused too. Now they probably, it's the thing about not wanting to admit it or whatever the case may be. And they maybe don't want to get that help. Hey, when you get hurt bad enough, you'll decide to get that help, get it.
Yeah.
It really don't make sense to have a whole bunch of pride up in the emergency room.
Amen to that.
Yeah,
Hey, I'm glad you brought up self-esteem. It's this lady from Colorado Springs, Margaret. She went, and that's our new listener band group right there in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
out.
Welcome, welcome, Colorado.
And
Thanks for listening.
she could not find her son was not depressed, but he no self-esteem, and she started watching some of the shows on there, and she wrote back and said that she discovered without knowing that her son loves to draw. She stumbled across it, and she went out and got him pencils, paper, and all that stuff. So he lit up like a Christmas tree doing all that. Now they're having conversations and talking. This is the parent that took the time out to find out, how can I get to my child? What can I do to conversate with him? And when she discovered that he could like drawing and stuff, she went out and got everything that he needs to get started. So he went from doodling to drawing. And I told her, when there's a good picture, send it to me so I can share it with everybody. But you know, so
what was her name again?
Margaret.
Margaret. Okay, go ahead. I just wanted to have that name. I got something to say to Margaret.
And she just loved when she went back and looked at some of the previous shows that we had, and she said some of the shows hit right dead on, and that sort of steered her in the direction she needed to go. And she did say one thing that made me feel, make us feel real good. She said, y'all tell the truth, you're honest about everything, transparent, but in the same way of we speaking, it's positivity that's going on. She says she feels that energy when she watches the show, and that she really deeply appreciate us for bringing things out.
Hey man, that's that San Antonio family love, man, that we have down there for our family down there in the SA, and now in Okinawa. I wish we could meet the folks that I have grown close to here. One of my fraternity brothers and his wife, the Rolls, just gotta give them a shout out over there for Thanksgiving. Had a Caribbean Thanksgiving, but phenomenal. Ate way too much, but anyway, haven't got those pictures on Facebook yet. But I just want to say to Margaret, what she did is worth its weight in gold in terms of relationship building now that she can do with her son, because now you have an end. You've connected with him. You now can start investing in his gift. You have something to talk about. You can start to kind of build that self-esteem, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. And you'd be surprised, kids, there's a window that you have with your kids, and that window is really strong the younger they are. When you get into teenage years, that window gets a little bit different. So if you don't really have that good rapport, and if you don't have that real respect, put in the bank, so to speak, of credibility and love, it's hard to get anything back out of them in the teenage years, and you really need it because you haven't put that time in to really understand and get to know who your child is or who your child is becoming. So I want to applaud Margaret and parents like Margaret to take the time to actually get in their child's business in a good way. Find out what they're interested in, find out what they like, find out what they don't like, find out what they're wrestling with. Talk to your child, have dinner at the table, pray, but with your child. And for those folks that don't have a religious affiliation, make sure that you are instilling a moral fiber in your child, because there's going to be some things when you're not there, they're going to have to make some decisions. And there's some people that will compete for your children's attention. So gangs obviously do that, but there's also people with some really interesting ideas on what fun is. And you don't want them to try to figure out their moral fiber in college or away from home, or listening to somebody that thinks experimenting with drugs is fun. Because there's stuff out now, Ron, that will kill you first time around. Fentanyl is not playing with you.
It isn't.
It's not playing. There's and I'm hearing about some other stuff, man. It's just blowing my mind. That's out here that these kids are playing with, and I'm thinking, I know about crack and meth, but there's some stuff out here that's, first of all, disgusting, but people are doing it. I heard about a drug over in Africa that I hope that I almost don't even want to talk about it because somebody might be stupid enough to try it over here. But let's say it uses body excrement and they do something with the excrement, and then people sniff it and crazy stuff happens.
Ooh, ouch.
So I'm not even gonna go into the details, but some people, know I'm hearing about some of this stuff, some of these meetings that I'm going to, and I'm like, they doing what with what? And this is somebody's thinking this is something to try. I remember when Spice came out and those synthetic drugs, and you had people contorting, their bodies and and doing all kind of crazy stuff. I don't even know how they were able to stand up because they were doing all kind of neural damage was being done to them. The date rape drugs, telling people when you go out, pay attention. I don't care if you're drinking Coca-Cola, Pepsi. You shouldn't be drinking alcohol if you're under the age of 21, but let's just be real. Some of these kids get out there and try it. They leave their drink. They got some stuff. They got some drugs out here, Ron, that you won't remember what happened the night before. And, kind of what Bill Cosby got in trouble for, those drugs are still out there. And stuff more powerful probably than he had used or whatever he got accused of using or whatever the case may be. I'm not trying to judge people. This is not a courtroom. This is just common sense, right?
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've worked in environments, where I was moonlighting, before I got my license and became a therapist. I used to watch people at a club downtown in Grand Rapids spike, drop something in drinks for ladies, and we had to expose them, be like, hey, don't drink that drink. There's something in there,
Yeah.
And it will knock them out. Date rape drugs are real, and it's not just women out here getting raped; it's men too. So, got to be real about it, right? So, in self-esteem, you're not gonna allow yourself to be put in some of those situations. Be around some of those people that maybe have less than stellar moral boundaries.
Right.
Just because you be popular or fun or whatever the case may be, you had to know back in the day who you could hang with and who you couldn't.
You know what? You're right about that because we knew troublemakers and we stayed away from them. We knew who they were and we stayed away. And parents knew who they were. Man, you stay away from what you call over there because he's nothing but trouble. We look at mom and dad like, what do you know about him? They knew more about him than you did.
Listen. Remember back in the day, families had to know each other's parents?
Yes.
Before you were friends with them? I thought I said this on the show. I remember one day, I thought he was my buddy, came down the street, had a basketball. We're going to go play some ball. My grandmother said, you can't go play with him. And I thought that was the wrong, that was the most horrible thing in the world. It was a sunny day outside. The basketball court was right down the street. And my grandmother said, no, you got to go back up the street. You can't play with my grandson. And I was like, dang, that was cold. Then I found out why down the line. You know what I'm saying? But, at that particular point in time, you couldn't just associate. But now we got people associating on these electronic devices, meeting up, and then you wonder why things are so messed up. We've incorporated so much without, knowledge, without wisdom, with our kids. And then, again, if you don't instill early on, I keep going back to this, if you don't instill that respect, that love at an early age, they're not going to be trying to listen to you at all when you're a teenager. Why? Because you haven't put that credit in there. You haven't put that love in there. And I know biblically we say, oh, you're supposed to honor your mother and father, but okay, can we just be real? If you're not living like nothing, How are they gonna honor you?
Yeah.
How are they gonna respect you? What code do you live by? If they see
Right.
you acting a fool, and then you tell them, and what was that saying that some of us used to hear? Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that don't work too well, right? So give your child some grace. If you know during them formative years you were out in the streets, you was doing the wrong thing, they paid attention.
Yes.
They
They
paid
did.
attention. So now when they trying to run the streets, don't act like, because now you in church, that they don't remember that earlier template.
Right.
So you're gonna have to dig in and do some work, get some grace, get on your knees, pray a lot harder, you know. And that's why I guess I'm glad I had my child later on in life, you know. So she saw me always going to work, providing, doing this, being responsible, all that type of stuff. So I can say you have no excuse but to push, but to be responsible, because that's all you've seen.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean be self-righteous. That just means be an example, be in a template that they can relate to, they can see and say, okay, my daddy gets up and goes to work. Okay, my daddy maybe can get up and go to work later now because he's established himself, he's running his business or whatever. But understand, I had to work up to that. And my wife tells Sydney all the time, you know, Joseph was working like 7, 8 jobs at one point.
Yeah.
Well, you don't get to certain levels until you put that work in. There is no shortcut to success. It just isn't. And if somebody knows of one, now don't even tell me because I don't believe it. It's a hustle.
Yeah. You know what? I'm glad you said it's a hustle because we were talking one day with some youth. I was talking to them and they were talking about me well, I'm be out there hustling, do what I need to do and all that. And I said, well, what makes a successful business person?
Hmm.
He looked at me, he said, hustling. I said, no, because hustling is one thing, being business is another. You can't mix those two
Hmm.
together, or you never have a successful business because you got that hustling mentality in your mind, and all hustling is not good hustling when you do that. And he just looked at me like, so what am I supposed to do? I said, do it the old fashioned way. Get out there and work and show people what you could do. You don't have to hustle everybody all the time. And the hustling part is some kids are love the hustling. They love going out there making. And if anybody know hustling, you out there doing something you shouldn't have no business doing, making a quick buck. That's how I look at it. So why try to make that quick buck now? How'd you gonna feed your family next month? You're gonna hustle the same, you can't
Well,
hustle the same
yeah,
person next month, you
right.
know?
Well, I think you have to understand something too, right? When you say hustling, what are we meaning by hustling? Because there's hustling meaning like I get out, I grind, I'm working hard, I'm hustling. But then there's I'm hustling meaning like I'm scamming people. If you're hustling meaning scamming people, yeah, there's really not a long-term future in that, right? I had somebody try to hustle me the other night, offered me $11 million, Ron. I'm not going to go into too many other details to do something with my practice. And I said, well, make a long story short, I said, well, I'm going to have my lawyer look at it and, we'll figure it out. All the stuttering started. I said,
Oh.
it's a wrap. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Yeah,
yeah,
because if you and in business, you have to learn how to move. Those folks that are trying to come and help you out, give you a hookup. No, they ain't trying to hook you up. They're trying to hook themselves up off of your wave, or off of your energy. When I say wave, that's how the young folks taught me that. Like they trying to ride your waves. They're trying to ride the energy, the synergy, the things that you put, get what they can get out of it, and then they gone.
yeah,
Right. And that's the scam part of hustle. It's nothing wrong with getting out here, creating your vision or having a vision, working hard, hustling hard, making it happen to make that happen. Right.
right.
There's nothing wrong with that. But you got to understand, again, that moral code. I'm not going to do anything that's going to come back and bite me because that really, in the long run, is not sustainable.
Yeah,
Because your reputation in whatever field you go into or whatever, it's got to be positive if it's going to be sustainable. You might make a quick buck, but that's it. Those bills are going to eat that quick buck up eventually. And then all you got left is your name. And if that ain't worth nothing, you're going to have a problem. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we got on that.
Hustling
That's what we
101.
got on. Hey, I see. Oh man, I see my battle on there. Ricky Draper just signed in. What's going on, Rick?
Yeah.
So, what else we got today, man? I know we're getting close to that time.
I
We
you
talked
know,
about quite a few
I
things. So.
I talked to somebody no, matter of fact, I had this young lady on the show on Monday, 34K, and she performed live on the show with her music and everything. And I said, I hope you're ready for my next question. And she looked at me and they're like, oh no. And I seen that look. I
Yeah,
said,
because you ask those questions, Ron.
I said,
You do ask the question.
that's a Joseph Lee look. She said, huh? I said, I'll school you in on that later. So she performed and I put her on the spot. And I said, well, you have a Christmas song you sing for us? She said, no, I don't. I'm working on some, but no. And I sort of felt bad. I put her on the spot like that because, I just, it's the Christmas spirit and everything.
Right.
But after the cameras was off and we started talking, I didn't mean to put you like. They said, oh no, Ron, that's good. What you do, you waking me up. I need to do some Christmas stuff. This is the Christmas time of year. Thank you. I said, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I got a buddy, Joseph Lee. You need to listen to him because I'm always coming with something at the end of the show that's going to take another hour to talk about.
You have done that on more than one occasion. But one thing I have learned to say with you is to be continued.
Yeah.
on the next show.
Yeah.
We'll finish that up. But I'm glad we kind of talked about, talking about self-esteem. I was in a meeting today and it came up more than one time on why some people are dealing with what they're dealing with. It kind of gelled to me in terms of, like how some of the celebrities are getting away with some of the things they're getting away with because people have low self-esteem. They're allowing themselves in those positions and they're pursuing fame, fortune, exposure through the wrong avenue. So, if we can get that message out to, start, and it really starts in the early development where you start with that self-esteem, self-worth, and understanding those narratives of, everything is not for you to do. And, you start looking at some of the popular artists that are out right now, and I have to talk about it. We look at our Nicki Minaj's, we look at Cardi B's, we look at Megan Thee Stallion. Now, if you actually listen to Cardi B, she's a lot smarter than a lot of people think.
Yeah.
Listen to some of the things that she says. Now, she understands how she came into the business was stripping and doing other type of things, but she's now kind of, trying, that's an image that she's put out there. She's capitalized on it. And unfortunately, I think some folks young ladies may take the wrong narrative from what she's done. But if you listen to what she's saying, she's got some political views. She got some stances. Yes. She actually took a very interesting stance on Will Smith that not a lot of people have taken. Like she said, she's tired of people attacking Will Smith, coming for him. And I kind of was a little surprised that she took that stance, and she explained why. But we need to see our especially our girls, our young ladies, for more than what they aesthetically do for us or for themselves or whatever the case may be. It's about what's in here that's going to sustain. I don't care how beautiful you are. If you don't have anything up here, it's going to be a limited relationship because financially, there's aspects that have to be addressed. There's got to, if you don't have any self-worth, what happens? What happens if you don't look the same way? It's always going to be somebody younger. It's always going to be somebody that's willing to spend more money on their body. And then we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Have you seen what happens to people to get older with all these modifications to their bodies? Yeah, so if you have self-esteem and value at an early age, you don't have to get all that fake stuff put on
Yeah.
to augment what God has already given you. Now, I understand things happen. There's things out there, there's cancer survivors, there's all that type of stuff. And I understand trying to deal with things that are happening to you unnaturally, but some of these women are absolutely fine the way God created them, and they're going
Yeah.
and adding these things onto their body because they just have low self-esteem, or they're trying to get money, fame, whatever the case may be. And they're putting their health at risk, they're putting their mental health at risk, and they're causing not the example that I think that they want for themselves or their kids. Because you can't just say, do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
We've seen examples of that. We see how those kids come out, looking at parents that are saying, do as I say, not as I do. And, I call those kids clients.
Yeah. Well, you talking about self-esteem and with the in crowd and all that stuff. I'm gonna share something with you that happened to me years ago when tattoos are in, getting your ear piercers in, all that
Mm-hmm.
was going on. And
Mm-hmm.
I did not succumb to none of that. To this day, I don't have an ear pierce. I don't have a tattoo. It's because that's what I wanted. And people say, well, this is what people doing out there. I said, you do whatever you want to do. I'm not doing it. I don't know. It
Let me
was
tell,
just me. It was just me. I
Let me tell
said,
you the advantage of that. Now, I don't have anything against people that get tattoos if that's what you decide to do. But I was
right.
kind of like you, Ron. Never. First of all, I didn't really want to get a tattoo because I changed my mind too much. So I'd be like, oh, I don't want to do myself. So
Yeah.
but the other part is I just really didn't want to put something permanently on my body. That's just not a decision I made. Now, it was interesting when I got over to Japan. If I had some tattoos on my body, there's some places that I wouldn't be able to go and some things I wouldn't be able to experience because they don't allow people with tattoos to go into those. So
Yeah.
there's some onsen, some very beautiful places you can go and relax and get into nature and all that. And they don't allow people with tattoos to get in there because they are trying to keep the Akusa from getting in there. I think I'm saying that name correctly. And that's like, a very serious, gang or underworld, whatever the case may be. So they've
Yeah.
kind of banned everywhere you go in Japan. If you have a tattoos, you can't take advantage of this facility.
Yeah.
So, some people get tattoos because somebody talked them into it, whatever. Well, you just made a life choice that you don't really, you don't really know all the ramifications of, So, and some people that put tattoos in other places, there's some jobs that you can't get because if you're in a high profile or job where you're going to be in the media or you're going to have to be seen and represent the face of the company, you can't have tattoos in some of these positions. So you gotta understand where you're going, what you want to do out of life, and if you want to wear tattoos, great. But understand there's a cost with everything you choose to do when you make it permanent.
Yeah.
Right.
I knew my boys when they were growing up. I told them, out this house, you can do whatever you want to do, but launch up under my roof, no tattoo. I have nothing against tattoos. That's your own prerogative. I think some tattoos are beautiful, and I comment on some
I've seen some
when
really
when
nice
I
ones.
see them. But that's not me. That's not me.
Right.
And I try to tell the young
Yeah.
crowd back in the days, I said, I do not have to follow y'all on what y'all doing. This is what I'm doing with my body. No. They
Yeah.
go and tattoo. Look at this. Look at this. Now look at some of the pain in their face when they get it done. It's tender and everything. And I said, was it worth it? Yeah, it was worth it. Okay. But to each his own. That's all I'm saying. But that was not my thing.
Well, I think again that takes a certain level of self-worth, self-confidence to define who you are
Yeah.
and to define what you will do, what you won't do. And I see a lot of folks kind of just falling in and we had those folks too back in the day that just would fall into the trend, fall into what everybody else is doing. Well, I learned early on, thank goodness, that if you fall into what everybody else is doing, you may only get what everybody else gets. And I wanted a few more things
Yeah.
than what other people are willing to do. And the other people that got those other things, they had to sacrifice. They had to kind of carve a different path for themselves. And not to say that every decision I made was perfect, and not every decision that I made was one that worked out at that particular point in time. But I will say every decision I made. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I knew what I wanted to do and what direction I was trying to go. And eventually, if you keep moving a particular direction based on what you know about yourself, what you know is right, and you don't accept those certain things, you're going to end up in a position you're going to be happy with some point in your life.
Right.
But that's why it's so important to have that foundation, have that self-esteem, have those parameters, listen to elders that have made some mistakes. But a lot of kids, man, if it ain't on social media, they ain't trying to hear it.
No,
And
they're
they're
not.
listening to other folks that have the same wisdom level that they have. So, TikTok don't really have wisdom. It has information. Instagram doesn't really have a whole lot of wisdom. They have entertainment. Entertainment is not wisdom. It's just entertainment. I've seen some really funny stuff. But then I started thinking, oh man, somebody's actually thinking that this is like how you're supposed to move. And they're about to go to jail. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're gonna get knocked out. Somebody gonna shoot this dude. You know what I'm saying? Thinking that this is funny. So you gotta really watch it, man. You gotta really watch it.
Yeah. When you said a song popped in my head as we were talking, I had to look it up. It was Ramsey Lewis Trio. If you listen to that old song, the song is called In Crowd. I'm in with the in crowd. I know what the in crowd wants. And I'm gonna find that song and play later on after the show. But when we said how we follow people and what we do things, he broke that song out back in, I forget what year it was, but he broke that song out, the In Crowd. And everybody, I know my dad played it all the time. Everybody played it all the time. It was just one of those songs that was in the radio back then. And y'all need to look that up. Seriously, you need to look that up and listen to that song, because the lyrics on that song will reflect what's going on today. That came out in 1965. Looking at it right now, it came out in 1965. So that'd be something to look at down the line.
Those old school songs used to have a message, man. And if you pay attention to it, learn something, The Temptations had a song about, I've been around the world, but I still haven't found me. And I was like, man, think about that. People, anyway, so the messages that were there, the people were jamming, they were listening to stuff, the music was there, but there was a message that you could, take with you and use down the road.
Yeah.
Now we got stuff like WAP. I'm not even gonna talk about what WAP stands for. Those that know, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that has a meaning, but that's not really something that I want to have the young ladies thinking that's the focus of what that's your value only.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we'll leave it at that. But so we've got to get back to that, and I charge people like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. She got a degree, she finished her education, but now can we do something about the image? What do you want your daughter to see? What do you want? And I get it. Yeah, you're making money, but again, what did I say earlier? All money isn't good money.
Yeah.
What about your legacy? Now how are you gonna be standing up in church at 50 years old and you've made WAP back in? So what when you get 60 years old, I don't want to go to that concert. when they anyway, I'm sorry. I digress. I digress. So we got to think about what we're putting down as a legacy. You got to think about what we're putting out here. Because one day your child gonna grow up and bring you your work. Exactly.
They're gonna see all that.
That's gonna be an awkward conversation. That's all I'm gonna say on that, man.
Yeah.
But anyway, I enjoyed the show today.
Yes,
I'm looking
sir.
forward to the comments and all that. Hey, so how many countries we in now, Ron? I'm gonna put you on the spot. Put you on the spot. What? How many countries we in right now,
See,
Ron?
see,
What
see,
we doing?
you're gonna say that. Nigeria, Japan, Australia, UK, Greece, Italy, Canada, and this Bolivia, if I'm right. And I'm probably left a few out, but yeah, I knew that answer already, Joseph.
Yeah, all right. See, doggone it. I can't get you. All right. So what's our numbers at, Ron? Yeah, I
Our
know we were at
numbers,
20,000 a while ago.
I think we're a little bit above that now, a lot above that now. I'm
Okay.
bringing numbers in right now. The raw numbers are coming in because now I went to other platforms, and so we're on about 20 different platforms that's going on, and so I got to get those numbers and find out what it is. But when we get people from Colorado Springs we never had before, and that's coming on board, and that's what I look for because talked to a young lady out there in Colorado Springs. I ran across her 2 weeks ago. We're gonna collaborate
Yeah.
together. Um, to
Shout
to
out to Margaret. That was Margaret, right?
No, this is another lady. This is
Oh,
the
it's
Mark.
another. Okay. Well, shout out to Margaret again, but you
Yeah,
didn't tell me this name. I just remember
yeah,
Margaret.
yeah. This is
Brother.
another young lady who's I'm gonna talk to down the line because we're gonna do some marketing together with Colorado Springs and WSN Radio. So
Okay.
we're reaching out to
So
people.
with that in mind, Ron, hey, I want to give a shout out to everybody who's listening, all the folks all over the world. Thank you for sending in the comments and things. We're listening. But I'm going to give an open invitation to my folks up in Michigan, the podcasts out there, that we can maybe, do some mutual stuff, work on that. Instead of talking offline, we're going to bring some other stuff online. Shout out to the Impact team again, Tamara Spears, Tomas Henderson, Sean C., Craig Washington, Jacques, all the folks that are there on the team in San Antonio and Michigan. And, looking forward to, again, bringing some things forward. Actually, I think Craig is going to be coming on next week again with a continuation of Church Hurt. Because, wow, we've gotten hit a lot with questions and, a lot of things are going on in the Grand Rapids office with bringing up those topics of church hurt and discussing the pimps in the pulpit and the damage that does. Because I've connected the dots on a few other shows about how we have to restore the integrity of the church. And I'm not saying that there are some great pastors out there that aren't doing great things. Well, let's just be real. There are also some pimps in the pulpit. They need to find another occupation, because we got people coming that need help, need to find the word, need to find strength, need to find guidance, and they're finding exploitation. And we need to move on. You need to know, where you at. And, I know, if you want to go to a fashion show, they've got them, but that's really not the place for that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. We talk about not just the situation, but how to heal from it, and then connect you to some resources on if you've been traumatized through church hurt and going through how you can be traumatized. So we got some other folks coming. I think that Martha's has laid some things out. She's got her own show on here, and we see about getting her on so she can talk about some of the workplace fatigue and things of that nature.
Yeah.
How to take care of yourself. We've got Tomas Henderson that's going to be talking about how to actually make your vision come to fruition. So we talked about that. We've got some things down the line with that. He's up in New York, but he's going to be on here. So we got to get that schedule together. But, I want to hear from other folks too. We got everybody listening. I would like to know what you want to talk about, what issues you want to address. So make sure we got the questions. I love we didn't talk about politics today. We could have, but I'm taking, hey, look, we got to take that stuff with a diet. You know what I'm saying? So,
That's right.
we've been on that for a while. So, nothing really notable that we need to update other than this, things are moving along, and prayers to our servicemen and women throughout the world. And also keep in mind the holiday season is upon us. If you can host a service member for the holidays that maybe is not able to go home for the holidays, keep in mind from the last show, we said that the suicide rate for the military now is like 57% higher than the general population. So it's an issue. So, you know, don't just say thank you on Memorial Day and then Veterans Day. Say thank you when you can make a difference. Every day, right? Especially over the holidays. So dropping bars around. But hey, it's about my time, man. We over about 1 minute.
Yeah, we're
So,
doing good.
you know, we're gonna wrap it up. But
Right.
you know, we're gonna wrap it up and just say, hey, your actions speak so loudly. I can't hear a word you're saying. So make sure you act in the right way so I can listen to you. So
Amen
that's all
to
I
that,
got.
brother. All right, Joseph, you take
All right.
care over there, and we'll catch you down the line, brother.
Catch you down the line, man. Talk to you soon.
All right.
God
Okay.
bless.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Konnichiwa.
All right. All right. We just heard from Joseph Lee talking about self-esteem with kids and everything. So it was nice to have that dialogue going on. So if you'll see more of Joseph Lee, go to our YouTube channel. It's WSAN Radio SA. We appreciate everybody watching the show today. God bless you, and we'll catch you next week. Thank you.